Hello, everybody. This is Bruce Buxton. I'm a business development director with Critigen. You might know me as the Graybeard. I'm calling in today from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And the purpose for this video is to introduce you to Critigen's services that we offer in the utilities marketplace. I'm joined today by Dan Lewis, who is our practice leader for utilities. He's going to explain a little bit about what you're going to hear today.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce, and welcome everyone to the user conference. Certainly look forward to being back in San Diego with you all next year. For this year, it's dialing in from Block Island, Rhode Island for me, and happy to be here with you as well today, Bruce.
Okay, Dan, let's dive right in. Many of those who are visiting our booth today probably know Critigen as one of the leading GIS consultants in North America and in the UK. What they may not know is our reach into the utilities marketplace. Maybe you could spend just a minute talking to those who are visiting us today about how we implement GIS and what our point of view about implementing GIS is in the utility marketplace.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. So I've had the great pleasure over the last 15, 20 years or so to work for some of the smallest, actually one of the smallest water utilities in the United States, as well as one of the largest electric and gas T&D utilities in North America. And that breadth of experience personally and more broadly as a firm at Critigen has really impressed upon us the fact that the ESRI platform sitting at the center of a utility can really provide value to more end users than any other system at a utility, short of, say, HR or timekeeping. So what I mean by that, and just walking through a very quick example, is when done properly, the ESRI system is no longer just a system of record for mapping your assets. It becomes transactional, and it actually enables all the other business processes and systems at a utility. So in this very high level example of a long cycle capital construction project, you might identify new customers or a new development through a sales or a CRM that has a location intelligent component to it. You've then got an engineering effort to design a project. You've got to get that out to your supply chain, make sure the right equipment is in the warehouse as well as on the truck, and then that makes it out to the field via some, a schedule and dispatch tool, for example. We've got to get that work order out into the field, and there's location components to all of that. And then, of course, we've got to install the new equipment, whether that be a transmission line or a gas distribution line. And then we've got to record that as built, and ultimately end up updating perhaps an ADMS system for an electric utility, an integrity and risk management tool for a pipeline company or a gas distribution company. And then the process, of course, can repeat.
Yeah, I really like that, Dan. That's really insightful. I imagine that as we implement GIS in these different utilities, some challenges are posed relating to data. Tell me a little bit about what Critigen can do to help there.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Bruce. Utilities for a long time have had this vision that I'm describing about putting the GIS at the center of everything they do, but they've historically run up against the data challenges you're describing. What ends up happening is data ends up getting copied and duplicated and moved so frequently between all these systems, it becomes a logistical and sustainment nightmare for both IT and operations. IT is constantly moving data around. Business has a lack of confidence because the data is being duplicated, and it makes it very difficult to make decisions. So our deep experience in integrating these technologies really seeks to, number one, not duplicate any data, and number two, to be sharing data without moving data. So the key is really to get all of these systems talking to the ESRI platform, reaching into one another without moving all that data around.
So Dan, that's a good discussion on our ability to implement GIS and our point of view on how that should be done. I'd love to hear your ideas on what would compel a utility to have to modernize their GIS. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, you're absolutely right, Bruce. We do often find that there is some type of a compelling event that causes a utility to really focus on modernizing their GIS. And, we've been fortunate to run into quite a few of them in the last decade plus that we've been deep into the utilities market. And I'd love to just sort of share a few of them for our audience today. So these are sort of real examples that our customers have worked through over the last 10 years or so. So we've worked with a major business transformation across the entirety of a gas business. They overhauled everything short of their financial system. And so when they did that, they really took that opportunity to say, to reimagine how the ESRI system would operationalize spatially all those other systems and all those processes running that gas utility. Sort of a common scenario that's not quite of the magnitude of a complete gas business transformation would be an ERP EAM implementation. That's oftentimes a significant driver for a utility to modernize their GIS system. Mergers, divestitures, and acquisitions, all three. As you carve out an operating unit, the GIS needs to go with it. And then flip side, of course, the acquirer has to integrate that operating unit's spatial systems into their existing processes and make those come together nicely. So those are a few examples. Certainly there's myriad regulatory drivers, whether we think of grid modernization, which is certainly accelerating here over the coming years, and utilities are realizing the GIS isn't quite fit today to meet the real-time needs of OT and IoT systems rather. And of course, there's a big focus, appropriately so, these days on both customer satisfaction, but most importantly, customer and community safety. So we want to be proactive rather than reactive to potential failure points in our T&D utilities to protect our communities and protect this critical service for our communities and the customers that live within them. So those are just a few examples of compelling events that we see causing utilities to look very closely at modernizing their GIS systems.
Dan, that's a good explanation of the drivers that could prompt a utility to consider GIS platform modernization. Maybe you could spend a few moments just talking about why that makes sense. Why do those drivers compel an enterprise to look at platform modernization?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what we tend to find is as any one of those compelling events would be causing a utility to modernize significant parts of the way they operate, irrespective of the GIS component. What utilities will find is that primarily one of two scenarios exist. There will be a fragmented number of GIS systems at their utility, perhaps on different platforms or at least different instances. And it's just too complicated to integrate 3 or 4 or 5 different operating companies' GIS systems into those next-gen platforms that are resulting from the compelling event. So that's one. And then secondly, they will often find that the existing GIS is insufficient to meet the more complex needs of those next-gen IoT, operational technology, predictive technologies, analytic technologies. The existing GIS is just insufficient to meet the needs of those more high fidelity next generation systems that they're deploying elsewhere in the organization. And to get the value out of the GIS requires a more sophisticated GIS platform.
Dan, that's a great explanation. One of those tools that you talked about that is running through the industry right now is ESRI's utility network. And I talked to a lot of utilities where their need to consider the utility network is becoming a compelling event. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Bruce, that's exactly right. So we've spent the last several years working with a number of utilities to implement utility network. We're live and in production, and we've really learned there are a number of opportunities. I'm not going to be exhaustive here, but some of the top opportunities our customers have been able to capture include a better real-world representation of what's actually in the ground. So you'll hear as we talk about the digital twin, we're big believers in that, and the utility network is a key part of that. We think about the ability to bring the transmission and distribution models together in one ESRI system. That has huge benefits to safety, to modeling, to preventative maintenance, and so on and so forth. Because again, it's a better real-world representation of the network and the way a commodity flows through that network. We've seen significant advancements in data governance capabilities with the utility network and its data models, which of course is going to promote and enhance data quality and data integrity. That's critical for making good business decisions, from the field workers to back office to the executive ranks and so forth. And then, we can't neglect the fact that a lot of the prior ESRI technologies were sometimes built before the internet was really used in business settings. And so ESRI realized they really needed to take a fresh look at things, and they built the utility network as a service-oriented architecture, really with the web and eventually mobile really at the forefront of the advancements they were trying to make with this next-gen connectivity model for utilities.
Yeah, so Dan, hopefully one of the messages we're getting across to those who are visiting our booth today at the ESRI UC is that we're deeply involved in the utilities industry, and we have been for some time. Maybe you could comment on that.
Yeah, Bruce, that's exactly right. So, we spent the last decade plus implementing and deploying large-scale enterprise ESRI platforms. I think one of our key differentiators is we've really cut our teeth integrating large-scale ESRI platforms with other business systems. That's our specialty. And we've more recently, the last 2 to 3 years, have brought the first 2 utilities to production with the utility network. We're really proud of those partnerships with those existing customers. But most importantly, for the rest of our clients in the industry who are considering utility network, I would submit that we've been able to glean lessons learned that frankly proofs of concept and sandboxes and R&D initiatives just don't provide. And so we're really looking forward to being able to help the industry move forward and capture the opportunities, but also avoid some pitfalls along the way.
Dan, you're a real pro. It's been a pleasure to be with you. And as always, you've provided some very insightful answers. I want to give you the last word today. Do you have anything that you'd like to leave this audience with?
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. And it was such a pleasure to be with you all here today, and appreciated having an opportunity to provide some of our perspective in the utility space. And, I'd be remiss not to mention, our experiences come from our deep relationships and commitments with our customers. So I'd love if you were able to come join us in our booth here as the conference continues. We can provide a little more information. And as always, be sure to email Bruce and I with any questions, comments, or additional information we can bring to you in the weeks and months ahead.